Today we're going to be talking about trading dollars for hours and why that can be a challenge for some of us, and what are some of the options, some solutions that we as real estate investors might be able to work on to make sure that we don't get caught in that loop. Our guest for today's show is Mark Podolsky, also known as the Land Geek. Mark is the owner of Frontier Equity Properties. He has several top-rated podcasts. The Best Passive Income Model is one of them. And he has a Land Geek podcast called Work Smart, Earn More, Learn More. And then the third one is the Art of Passive Income podcast. So welcome to the show, Mark. You've done over 5,000 unique transactions since 2001, I understand. Could you share with us what are a few things the audience should know about you right off the bat?
Yeah, Tom, I think the first thing they should know is that I was, sort of forged into real estate investing out of misery. So I used to be an investment banker working with private equity groups in mergers and acquisitions, mid-market stuff, enterprise value of 5 to 500 million. So nothing too crazy. And I hated it. I had a 45-minute commute to work and back. I was micromanaged. It was long hours. It was high pressure. And it got so bad for me that I wouldn't get the Sunday blues, anticipating Monday coming around. I'd get the Friday blues, anticipating the weekend going by really fast and having to be back at work on Monday. So this is 2000, and my firm hires this guy, and he's telling me that on the side, he's going to tax deed auctions. He's buying up raw land, pennies on the dollar. He's flipping it online, and he's making an average return of 300%. Well, Tom, wow. I'm looking at companies all day long. And a great company has 15% EBITDA margins or free cash flow. Great company. Your average company is 10%, and I'm looking at companies all day long, less than 10%. So I don't believe him. And I've got $3,000 saved up for car repairs. I go to New Mexico with him. There's no one in the room. I do exactly what he says. I buy up 10 half-acre parcels at an average price of $300 each. Over the next 30 days, I do exactly what he says. I put them up online. They all sell for an average price of over $1,200 cash. 300%, wow. It worked.
Nice.
So I took all that money. I went to another tax deed auction in Arizona, which is where I live. Again, no one's in the room. It's 2000. I'm buying lots and acres for nothing. And over the next 6 months, I took that money and I made over $92,000 cash. Wow. So I said to my wife, I'm like, honey, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to be a land investor full time. She's pregnant. She said, absolutely not. So I said, fine. So I did it as a side hustle for 18 months until the land investing income exceeded the investment banking income. And then I quit, and I've been doing it full time ever since. So
wow,
yeah,
to be able to do that, that's an amazing story. And what I really like about it too is I think it's great that you followed your wife's advice, because when I'm doing coaching, I always suggest that people make sure they have a good path to continue their income while they're getting into a new venture. And so that ties in right with what you're talking about here too, that people, you use the terms solo economic dependency. Can you just describe what you mean by that and how you suggest people work around that?
Yeah. So my first job out of college was working with dentists. I was like a dental broker. And my first mentor was Raj. And Raj would explain to me that being a dentist, there's a reason that they have the highest suicide rates. And the reason being is they have something called solo economic dependency, which means if their hands aren't in somebody's mouth, they can't generate any income. So they're sort of on this treadmill. They've got to pay the overhead on the physical plant. They've got to pay the dental technicians. They got to pay for their equipment. It's like they've got this huge wagon of overhead and they're going uphill, kind of carrying it all. And it's fine for the first few years. But after, let's say, your 1,000th crown or your 1,000th
Yeah.
filling, right?
Hmm.
It becomes very monotonous. It becomes very routine. And they don't know a way out. And so you find like doctors and dentists, the saying is like, oh, they're terrible business people. They're not terrible business people. They're just making desperate decisions because they
Yeah.
have no time to think about making a good business decision because they're on this treadmill. And so solo economic dependency can be applied to anybody with a job, anybody who's literally trading dollars for hours, freelancers. The majority of the economy, lawyers, doctors, chiropractors, professionals, therapists, anyone who is trading dollars for hours based on their own labor is at risk. They have solo economic dependency, and you can love your job. You might love it, but what happens when there's all these things outside your control? You get downsized, right? If you're a dentist, what happens if you have a woodworking accident? You lose a finger and you can't practice anymore. Disability is not going to cover you. And so
Yeah.
this is something that I think a lot of people don't truly sort of think about, especially when they're younger. Like this middle-aged sort of existential crisis. Like, I've been doing this, and now what? I'm never going to get off this treadmill. And so, for me, I think it's something that's really, really important to start thinking about now.
Well, and I think that's a great point, because if let's take those exact same examples, the doctor or the dentist that's really busy and needs to really is in a position where they need to and they want to and they realize that it's time for them to make other arrangements or to start adding some other form of income. But for instance, this strategy of that you're going to share, maybe we can get into some detail in that, because there's obviously going to be a learning curve. There's going to be a ramp up time. There's going to be how will that investor find the time to move to that new investment option? So maybe could you share just a little bit of what it looks like, what the path to getting into something like what you're about to share looks like?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, if you're a high earning, let's say doctor, let's say you're making $800,000 a year, well, you probably, if you look at your effective hourly rate, a side hustle probably is not appropriate. You probably want to go to a real estate fund that's going to give you a higher yield, and that's still passive income. So passive income to me is a one-time sort of investment of time or money that will yield recurring income every single month. So, let's say a plastic surgeon's probably not a good example of that. However, for people, let's say, that are not in the 1%, or even if they're in the 1% and they want another challenge and they want to build a business, well, I think my model is really interesting because what it is, it's a one-time sale. There's no physical inventory, and you get passive income every single month without any of the typical headaches of real estate. No renters, no rehabs, no renovations, no roads. So, Tom, if you want, I can walk you through step by step exactly what I do.
Oh, I think that'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, so Tom, where do you live?
I am in San Jose, California right now, part-time, and San Juan, Puerto Rico, part-time.
Okay, great. All right, so San Jose, California. So you're in Silicon Valley. That's awesome.
Yes.
And you've lost all complaining privileges based just on that. So sorry about that.
Oh, darn.
And okay, so what I'll do is I'll look at a county, let's say in Texas, and I'll say, oh my gosh, Tom owes $200 in back taxes on this 20-acre parcel in Texas, but he lives in San Jose, California. So you're advertising two things to me. Number one, you have no emotional attachment to this raw land. And number two, you're distressed in some way, right? Even $200, because if you aren't paying your property taxes, either you don't value that property anymore, maybe you've lost your job. There's something going on because we don't pay, when we don't pay for something, it means we don't value it in the same way. So what I'll do then is I'll look at the comparable sales for, let's say, the last 12 to 18 months in that county, right? And I'll say, oh, look at that. $10,000 is about the mean price or maybe the lowest comp in that area. And then all I'm going to do is divide by 4. And that gets me what Warren Buffett would call a 300% margin of safety. So I'm not going to be like the housing guys. I'm not going to send you a blind offer saying, hey, I'm interested in buying your land. I'm going to say, I'm interested in buying your land, Tom, for $2,500. Now, you haven't been paying your property taxes. You say, oh, fine. $2,500 is better. I'm never going to go see this property again. Great. Now, the reality is 3 to 5% of people are going to accept our quote unquote top dollar offer of about 25 cents on the dollar, right? So you accept it. And then we have to go through due diligence, or, fancy word for research. Number 1, I got to make sure you really actually own that property. Number 2, I got to make sure that the property taxes are only $200. If they're higher than that, I'm gonna start losing out on my margin. Number 3, I got to make sure that there's no breaks in the chain of title, right? Number 4, I got to make sure that there's something compelling about the property, mountain views. What can I do on the property? There's something interesting about the property.
To make sure that there's an end buyer that would be interested.
Right, exactly. And then ingress and egress, legal access. And so I have a whole checklist of things for due diligence. If it's a property that's $5,000 or less, we'll conduct our own due diligence in the Philippines. It costs us about $11. If it's $5,000 or more, we'll go through a title company and close. So now I own your property for $2,500, right? And then, Tom, I have a built-in best buyer. This is, I'm going to sell this property in 30 days or less. Do you know who my built-in best buyer is?
I'm going to guess maybe a neighboring property.
Exactly.
Oh,
yeah.
All right.
The neighbors. So I'll send out neighbor letters. Say, hey, look, here's your opportunity. Expand your holdings. Protect your privacy. Know your neighbor.
Certainly.
Right? And so oftentimes the neighbors are going to buy that property. Now, if the neighbors pass, I'll go to my buyer's list. If the buyer's list passes, I'll go to a little website you probably never heard of called Craigslist. And using software, I will automate about 100 ads by pressing a button. And then I'll do the same thing with Facebook buy-sell groups. So in 30 days, I'm going to sell this property. Now, the magic happens in the way that I sell this property. So essentially what I'm going to do is create a passive income stream, just like a housing rental. So I'm going to get $2,500 down, and then I'm going to make it a car payment. Let's say $449 a month, or at 9% over the next 8 years. And
owner financing. I love it.
I owner finance it. So, and I'll do it on a land contract. So there's no cost of foreclosure. And then I'm going to automate it using a software I created called geekpay.io that actually automates the payments and the notifications. So essentially 90% of this business is automated with software. And, I work about 2 hours a month in Frontier Properties.
Okay.
Some of my clients, they work about an hour a day as a side hustle doing this business. And then the game that we like to play is, can we create enough of these notes where our passive income exceeds our fixed expenses? And now we're working because we want to, not because we have to.
Absolutely.
And that's how we avoid sole economic dependency.
Okay. And wow, that sounds like a great strategy. Anything to do with owner financing where you can create that passive income stream. Basically, you're buying something at a huge discount because the seller is not interested in keeping it anymore, and so you're solving problems the entire path, pathway from start to finish.
Right, but the beauty of the raw land is that no one's calling me at 2 a.m. and saying, "Hey, my pipe burst." Right.
Right.
So I don't have to deal with any headaches, no renters, no rehabs, no renovations, no rodents. And because I'm not dealing with a tenant, I'm exempt from Dodd-Frank, RESPA, and the SAFE Act. So any of this onerous real estate legislation, I'm exempt from.
Yeah, probably the one thing that you may not be is getting notices if the grass is growing too long or something.
Yeah, so so we avoid these code enforcement. So during due diligence, are there any kind of code enforcement issues? You have to mow the grass. So like I had some properties in Oklahoma. I found out the hard way. I had to mow the grass, so I just stopped buying there. And the reality is this market, it's a huge market. It's huge. there's billions of acres of land, and there's no big players. Private equity groups, hedge funds, they're not interested in it because they don't think it cash flows.
Mm-hmm.
And the other beauty of it is it's the least sexy niche of all. If you go to a RIA meeting and there's 100 people in that meeting, 99 of them are going to be wholesalers, house flippers, or landlords. You and I would be only land guys.
Yeah, well, and that reminds me of one of the best pieces of advice that I had received over the years was something to the effect of the more boring your business is, the better it is, because you really want a boring business so that it's predictable, so that it doesn't have a lot of ups and downs. And so I could see where this could really fit within that category.
Oh yeah, it's incredibly boring. I mean, HGTV and the DIY network are not going to call me up and be like, hey, Mark, can we watch you in front of your computer?
That's good. That's funny. How about just for the heck of it, I'm going to ask you if you were to think of the best deal and the worst deal that you've done, because I mean 5,000 deals, that's a heck of a lot of individual deals. What comes to mind when I ask that question? The best and the worst.
So one of the best deals I did was I bought I did like $1 million deal. I bought from the railroad that sold to Morgan Stanley. So then Morgan Stanley sold to a public company all this land, and they only wanted the mineral rights. They didn't care about the land. And so I went in there and I negotiated and I started buying this property for $30 an acre, $50 an acre, all the way up to 100 an acre. And from about 2003 to 2008, I sold it all off at about 500 an acre. So on one deal, I made about $5 million on I'd buy 640 acre sections. I'd subdivide them into 40s and just sell them. And that was probably the best one deal I've ever done. The worst deal I ever did was this area in Treasure Lake, Pennsylvania. So it had a property owners association. It was overdeveloped by about 1,000 lots, right? And it's a beautiful area. It's like where the wealthy people from Penn State live. So you've got $1 million homes in there. It's gated, 2 PGA rated golf courses, 3 lakes. I thought, oh my gosh. And there's all these people not paying their taxes or property owners associations because they're just raw lots. It's just dirt, right?
Okay.
So on all of them. So I went in there and I told the property owners association, I said, look, you've got dead money and I can make it live again. Even if I only get $1 for paying in a property owners association fee, $1 in paying in taxes is more than what you're getting right now. So I negotiated. They said, okay, fine. And what I did was I took down all 1,000 lots, and it was really dumb because I bought this in 2007. So the first tranche did really well, right? And then after that, 2008 rolled around. Nobody wanted to buy them. And it was the first time, I made $100,000 on that deal. But when I factored in my time, I really broke even. And it's the first time I felt like I lost money on the deal.
But to be in a situation like that with that many lots at that timeline, in that time frame of 2007, 2008, for you to be able to say that you virtually broke even, to me, that says something about your model right there, because you would have had to purchase them at some amazing prices or some great terms in order for it not to totally turn you upside down. So yeah, I mean, you've got some strategies there that I think are very likely very powerful, because although you didn't make a lot of money, you were in right at the wrong time for lot development. And if you could come out with only that, and to be able to say that this is probably your worst or one of your worst deals, that says something about the strategy and the system that you're working with. So, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Now, what is the likelihood that if somebody is looking for this type of a property or this type of a situation where it's on the tax rolls or whatever, how likely are people to be able to find that? Because Is it really hard to dig in and find it? Are there many available? What does that look like?
Yeah. So, our lowest hanging fruit is going to be that tax delinquent property and
Mm-hmm.
people living out of state. But once that bears fruit, the next piece you go to is everybody in that county. So you get the county assessor's list of real property. You scrub that list. You get rid of the houses. You get rid of the commercial property. You get rid of the industrial property. You can sort by use code. Let's say VL, vacant land. Now you got all your vacant land. Well, you've got ones, you got fives, you got tens, you got 20s, you got 40s, you got 80s, 120s, 180s, 640s, right? Well, you can't send the person who has 40 acres the same offer as the person who has 5 acres, right? They're going to send you glitter back in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have to do is then sort of sort by acreage, do your comps, divide by 4, and send out the correct offers from there. And the data will tell you where you're at. So if your response rate is less than 3%, you came in too low. And if your response rate's over 5%, you came in too high, and you probably need to retrade at that point.
Okay, and the process that people need to go through to get to success with this strategy, what is the learning curve? Is it how would you describe the learning curve to get to successfully closing several deals? Let's say.
I mean, it really just depends on the person and just what they're bringing to the table. So some people, I mean, my podcast partner, Scott Todd, was a Fortune 300 executive. It took him 17 months and 3 days to replace his Fortune 300 salary in land investing. It took Cynthia Tripathi 13 months to replace her income. It took Scott Bossman 15 months. So I would say between the average, probably 12 to 18 months to, let's say, get to 10,000 a month in passive income.
Okay. And do they do that by way of, and I'm sure it might be different for different ones, but was it through truly passive and investing alongside of something that you were working on, or did they do it on their own? And I understand that I believe you do some training options as well, and we can get into that in a minute. But I'm just trying to get a feel for what their path was, how they went about it.
Yeah. So they were just we were their Sherpa, and we took them up that mountain. We helped them create their own business.
Mm-hmm.
And then the whole point is to step out of that business and work on the business and not in it. So we helped them create the systems and the automation and the delegation so that it was truly sort of a passive income machine for them after that point. So the learning curve, I mean, of course, you can't abdicate when you're creating a business. You have to delegate. And by that, I mean, you can't just say, hey, go scrub a list. Like, you need to know and teach somebody how to do every aspect of this business. And we help them do that. So we shorten the learning curve. So basically, I've made $1 million mistakes. I help people avoid that. So, my philosophy is like, you can always make more money. You can't get more time. So way to shorten your learning curve.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So today we're talking about creating a cash flow, creating another source of income so that we don't get caught in what Mark calls a solo economic dependency. And so I think there's some, it sounds like there's some real potential in the strategy that you're talking about. Now you do offer some sort of training, and I believe, and you said you have a book coming out. Do you just want to share a little bit of information about that?
Yeah, the Dirt Rich book is coming out in a few weeks, and it really kind of walks everybody step by step through my journey of land investing and what happened to me, and what happened with me in the cycle. It was kind of dramatic, and some of the mistakes I made, and then from there, just the step by step process of exactly what we talked about. More of like how to start creating passive income in land investing.
Okay. And what is the name of the book?
Dirt Rich.
Dirt Rich. Oh, great.
Right.
Great name. Yeah. So it sounds like you and I are right about at the same point with our books. I have mine coming out within the next month or so too, the way it looks at just having one of my last discussions with my editors today and tomorrow, hopefully. So
Yeah, isn't it miserable, the whole process?
It has been such a learning curve for me. I mean, it's such a mind game. I just would have never guessed that it would have been that much of a mind game for me anyway. I don't know. Has it been a good experience for you overall?
I mean, working with my publisher has been great and they've been really helping me, but the mind game for me was, is it really done? Like, it's like you never want to really finish a book.
Totally.
It's like once it's done, you're like, oh no, like I can't go back. I can't edit this. Like, you know, if I do a bad podcast, I can eventually delete it. Or if I do a bad, YouTube video, I can go back and I can edit it. I can't go back and edit the book. And at some point, like, good is good enough. I mean, I think I've created a good enough book.
But yeah, and besides, everybody's going to see it. What do you do? Oh my God, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is like,
it's just it is an interesting mind game
it's a very vulnerable sort of.
Totally. Yeah, that's good. That's a good way to describe it for sure.
Yeah.
Good. So, Dirt Rich is going to be out and this is April of 2018 in case people are listening and on the podcast. And so within several weeks, that book would be out. I'm assuming it's going to be available on Amazon.
It'll be on Amazon. Absolutely. Where all fine books are sold.
All right. And if listeners have things that they would like to, let's say they have questions for you, is there any way that they can reach out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best place to start really is thelandgeek.com, and they can, get for free the Passive Income Blueprint, get our ebook, How to Avoid the 3 Fatal Land Buying Mistakes, and then start getting the Art of Passive Income podcast delivered each week to their email inbox. We also have an app on iTunes, the Land Geek app, so they can do that as well. And I'll tell you what, if they email support@thelandgeek.com and just put in the subject line, bank-free blueprint, we'll send them for free our Passive Income Launch Kit, which is a $97 course.
Oh, wow.
Which really give them a deep dive into this niche.
Great. Yeah, that's a great offer. I think it's a great strategy and a great offer. Appreciate that. So we're gonna wrap it up here, but I'd like to give you the last word for the podcast. And by the way, I think it's pretty cool that you're walking while we're doing this podcast, and it's a video podcast, and so I am tempted to get myself kind of the same setup, because what better way to work during the day than while you're able to are you just on a slow treadmill? What do you do?
Yeah, it's just a slow treadmill desk. I'm going like 1.1 miles per hour. But for me, like I feel like I think better when I'm walking and talking. And so it's more like cognitive than anything else. Like I'm certainly not losing any weight doing this.
Mm-hmm.
But
no, but that's great, because I've my carpet in my office here gets worn because I walk around. I really a lot of times when I'm on the phone, I'm just walking. I like you said, it's something I think better when I'm walking around. So that's great. But yeah. So what's the one key point people need to remember from everything we've talked about today?
I think the key point, I think Zig Ziglar says it best, and I think this is like really applies to real estate in investing in general. If you will do for the next 3 to 5 years what other people won't do, you'll be able to do for the rest of your life what other people can't do.
Excellent.
You like that?
Thank you, Mark. That's a great note to end on. And thank you very much. And thanks for the offer. And look forward to connecting with you again very soon.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Appreciate it.